Welcome back to my game devlog. This week we're looking into my map and level selection system that I've created in Unity Game Engine. As a professional creative, I've been using 3ds Max for a very long time. And whilst the UK can't afford to hire anyone, I'm filling my days as a solo indie game dev. Recently, I've released Combat Search Rescue on the MetaQuest, and now I'm prototyping a game for release on Steam. For the past 3 months, I've been working on a lot of systems that the player is never going to get to see. These systems are really important though. It's the chunk-based world streaming, object pool data persistence and addressable system. And it's really important that I have that because I want the game to be really performant and I want it to be fairly quick to load to start with. And it solved lots of problems, but it hasn't given me anything that I can show anyone. And then when Daria, my partner, comes along and says, what have you been doing? There's nothing to show her other than code. But that's changed this week because I now have a in-game map and level selection system. My game is a small narrative-based open world game, and you need a way to be able to nip between the levels when you realize, I need to go back to this place and unlock this door, or I need to go over here and give this object I found to this character, and you need a way to be able to do that. So I developed this. For me, it was really important not to just have a flat 2D graphic for a map that you can select and highlight areas on. My skills lie within 3D modeling and animation, so I wanted to utilize those skills and make the map 3D as well. And I wanted it to be not just a static thing, I wanted it to have some life. So I mocked up this 3D representation of my world. It's kind of like a diorama. There are 8 levels in my game, and that ties in with the narrative, which we'll look at in a future episode. And you fly around them. Whichever one you stop on, you can choose, and it loads that level. So I intended this map to be a placeholder. I knocked it up in Blender, and it's not my weapon of choice. I will do all the game art in 3ds Max. I don't have a 3ds Max license at the moment because you have to pay for it yearly, and I'm holding out until I've done all the under systems, and I can't go any further, and then I'll license 3ds Max and do all the modeling. But this model has started to grow on me, and I might just keep it. The textures may or may not stay. This one here is supposed to be the ocean, so that's going to be an animated texture of the ocean, but I haven't looked in how to do that yet in Unity. So it's still quite basic. Around the edges need covering up. I'm going to probably put clouds so we get an impression that we're actually flying around the world. And what I did initially was I put the padlocks in place to show that each level was locked. I did them in 3D because, again, I didn't want to just do a flat graphic and lay it on top of that segment. So I designed the padlock in Blender and put it in. And then it looked a bit rubbish just rotating around with all these padlocks that didn't move, so I animated them on, and I was really happy with the animation. It's a really simple animation, but it really just brings it to life. So I decided that when the levels aren't locked, each segment should have some scenery on it to show what's in the world. So I animated that on the same, and I really, really like it. The system is designed so I can update it really easily in Unity Editor. It works on the object pool, so I just tell it which assets to pull in from the object pool and connect them up to these transforms. So the system works on a state machine. It didn't. The first version I wrote loads of booleans to stop things appearing and make them appear. Is it locked? Is it not? And I got in a real mess, and it kept getting situations where the padlock would stick on, or the trees would stick on, or the trees wouldn't appear. And I was adding more and more logic, going, if this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. If this is no, then do this. And then I remembered I could just use a state machine like I did in my chunk-based world streaming manager. And I knocked that up in a couple of minutes. It worked really well, and it just goes to show that you don't always do things right the first time, and you don't always remember what the right thing is to do. So you go head deep and go, I've got to program it doing this, and it's like, there's this really simple coding pattern I could use. So it's a state machine that works really nicely, and it never gets stuck now. It works on the addressable system. So it loads from an addressable, it loads from the object pool as well, and then each of these levels is looked at on a, what's it called, a scriptable object. So it holds all the level names, and then obviously all the prefabs and everything are in there. And it sees what the levels are called. Then I updated the player save info to know whether it's locked or not, and it just looks at the save info that the player has and goes, have you got that level or not? Yes or no, using Bitwise. I learnt Bitwise doing this. I've seen it used before, but I didn't really understand the syntax, and I'm not completely sure I'd still do. But I know how to make it work. There's only 2 operators that I need, and they work, and I'll probably never touch it again. So there's not a lot to it. For a map, I think it's very visual, and I like the way it animates, and there's a lot of scope for art on this, so I can like really make this shine in areas, and because it works on the object pool, I can add as many things as scenery and objects as I like, and it will just work really nicely. And now I've got a way to be able to prototype all the rest of the things that I write from now on in all the different levels. Because I'm using object pool, it's really important to test everything works with the object pool. So the only way to test them really for me and my programming skills is just to connect them into the game and then run through the game, through the bootstrap, through the object pool loader, through the game loader, through the map, and then into that level. And then that way I know it works in my game as well, because in my previous game I was testing things in isolation, and then when I'd put them into my actual game's level, it was like, oh, it doesn't work with this system, and now, oh, the lighting's wrong, or oh, this collider level's wrong. So I'm going to prototype my things in the actual game levels themselves. So that's where we're up to. The next thing you will see is my dialogue system to drive the narrative, but that's for next time. Meanwhile, right now, the original game, Combat Search Rescue, that I did for the MetaQuest is on sale from the 17th of April to the 27th of April 2026. So pop over there and you can have it 50% off, and there's also a try before you buy. I'm kind of relying on the sales of that game to be able to afford my 3D Studio Max license, and if it sells enough, then a Substance Painter license too. So please, if you buy the game, you'll be supporting my game development for this game. That's it for now. Until next time, see you. I've got to get better at these endings. I should write it down, because see you next time.